Welcome to the Idle Thumbs Ruination cast for May 2017 and June 2017.
What?
Yeah.
Are you saying that this is twice the Ruination?
Yeah, I'm saying get ready to be extremely ruined. I guess we should. We should get ready for that because we're the ones to which it happens.
That's true.
We've realized that the way that we've been releasing these means they always end up on the Idle Thumbs feed in the month after they are conducted. So in an attempt to remedy that, we are slamming two of them together so that when we record July's Ruination, it will actually go up in July.
Yep. So for now, enjoy a million questions and answers and the discussions that come from those, but like twice as many as usual.
Oh, man. I'm ready.
Okay, good. Did you guys print out show notes? We always print out show notes these days because we don't know what we're talking about anymore.
And we're increasingly old.
That's not the old part.
We like physical copies.
God, everyone's increasingly old. Weird. Increasingly old is a phrase you could use to describe every person.
That's true.
Huh. The increase, like, you know, like in news articles where they'll say, like...
The increasingly old President Obama.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. My co-host, the increasingly old Nick Brecken. Welcome to the Idle Thumbs Ruination Online for May 2017. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin. Welcome.
Well, thanks. This is the stream on which we answer questions and demands put to us by high-tier patrons of our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/idlethumbs. We are doing a 3-minute timer question on this one.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Let's get into it.
Should we just go?
Go.
All right. The first one is softball question. It's very easy. And Nick, it is directly posed to you.
Okay.
This is from Andy Gorman, who says, on the last Ruination cast, Brecken said he was a Richard Linklater fan. What are your impressions of his movie Everybody Wants Some?
I think we already answered this question, unless... that was a question on the last Ruination stream, I believe. Unless two people asked the same question. I will answer it by saying, because we both said the same thing, which is that we haven't seen it yet.
Does that answer still hold? You didn't even go try to watch it?
No, I haven't. I just haven't had a chance to see it yet.
I think we told him to ask this again because you were going to watch the movie.
Owned. All right, you know what? Andy
Gorman.
If you're watching and you have another question, please feel free to
just tack it on. And by the end of the
I'm a fucking failure and I didn't watch that movie yet. Whoops.
This is going to be the first question on every...
I know, I hope so.
I like that the fact that it was the first question meant he was actually the first person to ask, because these are in chronological order. Mm-hmm. So he was like, oh, I can't wait. Nick Brecken promised he was gonna answer my question. He's gonna do it just for me.
All right, I'm gonna make a little note.
You were paid at least 2 months in a row by this man.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. Watch Everybody Wants Some.
Good thing we gave you the full 3 minutes there to get into your real
to stew in your guilt.
Yeah.
All right. I guess that's it. Moving on.
Oh.
I guess that's it. Thanks for joining us on this.
Shamecast.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Alex Schroeder asks, is Breath of the Wild a better Far Cry 2 than Far Cry 2? I don't think so.
Next question.
No, I mean, like, it's an interesting... We threw around Far Cry 2 comparisons a lot when talking about Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but I think we might have overstated the degree to which it's Far Cry 2.
I think part of that is because Breath of the Wild in its opening hour does feel really evocative of Far Cry 2, but it sort of asserts itself as its own game the farther you get into the systems, I think.
Yeah, the more I've played it, the more I would compare...
Save your contentious opinion for the final minute and a half rebuttal.
No, I mean,
I'm not. Yeah.
The more I've played it, and I've played a lot of it at this point, like dozens of hours. At this point now, in my brain, it lives in the same space as Skyrim or something like that. It feels more like that to me than Far Cry 2 does.
I get the same moments of like I would say in terms of world exploration and the moments, like the sort of just like beautiful moments that you have playing Far Cry 2, I feel like that's close. I think the two things that separate it from me are, one, the fact that you can fast travel at any time, which you can just force yourself to play it that way, but like it's still not really the same thing.
Yeah.
And Far Cry 2 just like basically you get owned in a much more interesting way in Far Cry 2 than you do in Zelda. But then also I would say just because Zelda is a game that just generally doesn't have a high fidelity of like enemy AI, just means that like the expressiveness of the people that are following you are like, you know, just like weird moments where you're just out in the middle of a desert and you hear like the crack of a rifle or something, you know, like that kind of thing doesn't seem to happen.
The enemies are very expressive and capable AIs for a Zelda game and for a Nintendo game, but I think you're right that the combination of those things, especially as your abilities stack up, I don't feel like the enemies like complexity at being able to handle you stacks up. They still basically do the same behaviors that they did early on, which totally felt like Far Cry type stuff to me when I was an underpowered character and when like you'd knock a weapon out of a goblin's hand and see them go run around and find another thing and come at you with it, but they're not proactive in the same way, right?
Yeah. So those two things, I think,
they'll always be sleeping or dancing until you aggro them.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Breath of the Wild does something that Far Cry 2 just doesn't even attempt to do, which is like, this is a world for you to enjoy.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time in Breath of the Wild just exploring and enjoying the world, like just enjoying being in it. In Far Cry 2, one of the things that makes that game unique is it's sort of a disempowerment simulator, which Zelda feels like for a while at the beginning, but you can level your way out of that as far as just the normal world goes. Far Cry 2 never stops just fucking you over all the time because you don't like level up your hit points in that game.
Yep, you're always flying by the seat of your pants.
Yeah.
Also, as pointed out in chat, Breath of the Wild does not have a 3D diegetic in-world map, so
oh, that's all the time we have.
Final word from Jake.
Yeah.
Tom Grundy says, "What is the worst movie, book, game, or entertainment thing you've ever experienced?"
The way best or worst?
The worst.
Worst. Oh, fuck.
It's a tough question. I should have prepped for this.
Yeah. Do we approach this from the like perspective of like literally the worst or the worst in terms of your expectations going into it? Because I feel like that's two separate things in my mind.
You can take it however you want. You could take it with the expectation one if you think that would give you a better starting point.
Oh gosh, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
If you want to go in terms of total just hype to disappointment, it's the go-to stupid example, especially for people my age, that it's become a cliche. But Star Wars Episode 1 really did hit me hard as a teenager. Like I had never been hyped up for anything to that degree, and then walking out of it just going, that was actually bad. Like it's not even justifiably bad, but like that's not the worst thing I've ever experienced by any means. Yeah. Just the delta between my anticipation and it ended up being an actual formative experience for how I think about media because of that, but like, or just like my own way of engaging with things as a fan.
Yeah.
But that's not the same as sitting through an entire thing and just going, oh, you know?
Right.
Like,
yeah. I mean, this is definitely not something that I think would stand any sort of historical comparison to all works before it. But man, I remember trying to watch Independence Day 2 or whatever.
Oh man, I tried to do that because you told me how bad it was, and so I thought, I've got to dip into this for 10 minutes. No, that is impossible to watch.
It's unwatchable, and I didn't go into it with that expectation. I went into it being like, I just want to see Jeff Goldblum like be entertaining. Yeah, I don't really whatever. Like that's fine.
Yeah,
it was unwatchable. There was no redeeming value to it. I couldn't find anything enjoyable or entertaining about it.
Yeah,
it was so fucking boring. There was nothing.
It was really terrible. I only made it 20 minutes in.
I don't even know how that's doable at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised that there are...
Pirates of the Caribbean 5 opened this weekend, and I'm sure that it's just as irredeemable as that movie as far as just like... Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's like, of course, I've seen horrible movies. You know, I mean, everybody's seen like really schlocky, shitty movies, but like when I go in with the expectation of like, I wonder what this director that I respect has done with this franchise, and then it's just a piece of shit. Yeah. Like, oh man, like stuff like, Going in and watching Prometheus pissed me off to no end because the original Alien is one of just my favorite films, and watching the difference between like just oh my god, I can't even like wrap my head around how bad that movie is, and then the people that sort of like eat it and love it, and I just all of God, this, no, it's so bad.
All of this stuff is actually a source of guilt for me at this point because like big franchise movies aside, which like yes, big huge sequels to things, whatever, you can skip out on those, but I feel like my aversion to going to see a thing that I think that I won't like or think will be a waste of time probably means that I've actually just like completely destroyed my ability to go see to be surprised by weird things. Like when I was younger, when I was like in my 20s film student days, I would read and watch anything.
You still see tons of movies.
I see just trash. I'm sorry, like I know the buzzer just went off, but like I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but I didn't go see the 5 movies I've never heard of that are playing at like the actual art house theater.
You're just going to like just the stuff everyone sees.
Yeah, but I won't take a risk on something that I think is a waste of my time preemptively, whereas I'll be like, this is a comfortable, boring way to kill 2 hours as opposed to an interesting but unknown and potentially terrifying or just demoralizingly bad way to kill 2 hours. I won't go to I stick in the safe middle instead of the unknown.
I mean, at this point, I would have to assume that, I mean, there are fewer, I mean, certainly in this area anyway, there are fewer art house theaters than ever. I would have to imagine that stuff playing in those theaters has a higher likelihood of being decent than it used to.
Yeah, but I still won't go see it. So that's bad. It's real bad.
I'm just saying that the risk isn't that it's going to be irredeemably awful, probably. The risk is probably higher that the things you're going to see are going to be irredeemably awful.
Yes, I know. It's a terrible trap. I mean, I feel like that, I didn't want to only talk about cinema, but I feel like that's an actual problem with theatrical film releases right now in general. Like people will see stuff that on its face sounds like a safe bet, and the actual real result is people's unwillingness to be surprised seems to have optimized towards you're going to see either what you expect or a shitty version of what you expect more often than not.
But at least the shitty version of what you expect is sort of comfortable.
Yeah. Like I bet a lot of people are seeing Pirates of the Caribbean 5 even though it has like a 20 to 30% on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
Yeah.
I think it's just for me, I don't know why we're spending so much time on this one question. It's interesting to think about. Like for me, like I think with like living in a town where an Alamo Drafthouse didn't exist, the idea of going into a movie is just such a painful concept to me. Like knowing that there's going to be the guy talking next to me and the fucking cell phone and like at the shitty AMC or whatever, I'm not going to like pay $20 for that experience. But like I will say, living by a theater like the Draft House that will play movies that you haven't heard of and recommend them in the pre-roll for other films that you are like Guardians or something, and knowing that I'm going to go there and have a good experience, I've found myself much more likely to go see stuff that would challenge me at a thing like that. I think it's just like the whole night of like, is it really worth putting up with the fucking annoying people around me to see see the thing that I don't know is good
I feel
or not.
bad about it because living in Oakland, there's a theater called the New Parkway that's walkable from where I live, and it's just, I mean, it's a goofy, awkward like local theater, but it's not the AMC experience. It's like it's funky but comfortable, and they'll serve you pizza and beer, and then play a weird limited release movie. It's a thing that I like, and yet I don't go to it.
Jake identifies the problem. It's him.
Yeah. But it's not just me.
Well, sure.
No.
Be the change you wish to see in the world.
Anyway, that's the worst movie.
Apple Cider writes, if you had unlimited newfound wealth, what is one of the most ridiculous things you'd let yourself buy? No sensible choices like choices. No sensible choices like houses, cars. No sensible choices like houses, cars, etc. It has to be ridiculous and extravagant.
Oh man,
that's a good question.
Yeah.
The postulation, the stipulation that it...
No being a boring adult.
Yeah. Well, because it's so easy. I mean, a house just would chew up... a really expensive house is just obviously would chew up infinite money in theory.
Yep.
Yeah. God, what is one of the most ridiculous things you'd let yourself buy? Should have thought about this ahead of time. I'm just going to chew up this clock. I think
I don't know if this isn't ridiculous though. It's just, well, to me, it's entirely sensible.
Which is what?
I would just stock my house with like lifetime supplies of all the things that I like foods and shit.
Sure, like gourmet foods.
No, just like mayonnaise. No, just
what the fuck?
no.
Fuck you. You would be you newfound wealth, and you'd fucking
no.
Mayonnaise?
Just like Verner's and mayonnaise and just all the stupid shit that I like, and that I never have to go out and get it. It's just like it's there if I want it. Just fucking dumb, boring shit, but like it's just infinite supply of mayonnaise. Yeah.
All right.
You'd have to buy a new house to fill it with all your mayonnaise.
Oh, there'd be like a warehouse out back.
Fully amphibious vehicle. Or hot air balloon, or own a large manufacturing apparatus that would allow the fabrication and creation of things to be made real. Like just buy the factory in Germany that makes Harry's razor blades, but like my own one that doesn't have to make razor blades. Or
they
like
make different kinds of
or
blades.
one of those like duck tour boats that starts off on the street, then goes into the water. Totally good. I'll take one of those for sure.
I would build a ridiculous. I would, assuming that with this wealth, the house is assumed, right? Like where that's not my actual thing.
Yeah,
the house is like assumed.
Yeah.
I would totally do the dorky thing and build the like hilarious tiki bar themed area in my house.
Sure. Why do that? Okay, you now made me. If I had so much money that I didn't have to worry about it, I wouldn't build it in my house. I think what I would do then is
just open a place.
The stupid, speculative, wacky business ideas that just come to you. Why not just do them? Why not just make a good tiki bar and fucking run it, and then give yourself a nice little back room that is for yourself and your friends.
Yeah. In Mr. Big's room.
Yeah. Why put it only in your house when you could just
But then you'd have to like other people would come to it, and it would cost money to run.
Money's no object, Chris.
That's true.
You could run this fucker into the ground over a century.
Lost leading tiki bar.
Yeah, why not?
My dream is to put all the other tiki bars out of business in this town,
and then put myself out of business. Yeah, you're gonna Walmart all other high concept bars out of existence.
Yeah. What a weird industry to be part of the race to the bottom.
Yeah.
Race to the bottom, tiki bars. The end. I think you're right though that extravagant business ideas is actually that's a good vein.
Yeah, no, that's
Nick's starting a startup that just delivers Verner's and mayonnaise to everyone's houses.
I had an idea for a restaurant that was just all like local favorites from different areas.
Oh,
like
that's a good idea.
Regional.
You could call that restaurant local favorites, and it would blend right in this city.
No, I know it would. Yeah.
The problem is that would just sound like every other restaurant with no concept in San Francisco.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Made here with a little sticker.
Yeah.
Aaron Field. Well, no, your concept was that it wouldn't be, right? You'd be importing the stuff.
Well, right. Yeah.
Oh, that's like the restaurant in SF MoMA, kind of.
Oh, that's true.
Really?
That's actually a cool thing.
Restaurant in MoMA is sort of. It seems like its idea behind it is.
It's like chefs from. It's like they invite.
Well, it's not that they don't. They make it all themselves with their own chef, but they have. It's like if food is art, and there are people creating. Food as art around the world. They have the menu items are all sampled from famous restaurants and famous chefs.
Yeah, but they invite those people to like choose them, right? It's not like they're just
they don't
engineering.
Poach them.
Yeah.
It's like a gallery, but of
but you eat it.
Yeah, but you eat it.
But you eat them. All right. Aaron Field writes, "Hello, Turgid here. There have been a couple..." I like that he has his name. You may know me as Turgid. There have been a couple articles revealing actual real-life fallout shelter condos that have been built into defunct missile silos, etc. If global nuclear war did occur and you had the option, how would you prefer to ride out the apocalypse? A. Rely on government evacuation and housing. B. Personal self-built shelter. C. Cushy rich people missile silo, but possibly subject to Remo-like overlording. Ugh.
This is very dark.
I mean, the choices between... Why is one of the choices you just have the resources to do the one you want? Isn't that like obviously the choice? I mean, I would rather a world in which there is like good, high quality government supplied housing for this purpose for everyone. Like, I mean, I want that to be the world.
Though. I think Sweden has that.
But it's a hypothetical question. I'm saying if I like.
Oh, it is. Okay, I see.
Wait, what do you?
Oh no, I don't know.
Think this is actually going to happen like next week? What do you mean?
You never know.
That's. I mean, yeah.
No,
I mean, he's saying which would. I mean, it's obviously hypothetical because one of them is I'm the overlord of, like, me specifically, Chris Remo is the overlord of it.
Yeah.
And
I think
so. In other words, would you take the public bus or like the sort of Uber version of this?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think
I prefer the version where Chris is the overlord because it would probably torture you long term. Where you'd be like, oh, this is what I want. It's the I think that's the more interesting social experiment if we have to do it. It's like what you as a full living, breathing human who's doing this to actual human lives would have to go through a very interesting journey.
It'd make for good television.
It would, yeah. for the parts of the world that weren't owned in a shelter, the one where they watch Chris make. What the fuck was that? Like it was all women, or I don't even remember what your fallout shelter was.
I had one that was all women. I had a bunch of different weird, like, I can't even remember, man. That feels like so long ago.
Yeah.
Mine would be I would turn it into a tiki bar, and I would have
damn it,
the tiki bar at the end of the world.
Right. I didn't even start the timer, but it expired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stephen Norrie says, of Chris's old Idle Thumbs songs, which is your favorite, and which is the best? The answers can, and one could argue, should be different.
Man, I think we've talked about this actually.
Oh yeah.
My favorite is Space Asshole, but the best is the Fanboy's Lament.
Which one is the Fanboy's Lament?
The Fanboy's Lament.
That was the first one, wasn't it?
I think the first one was technically the theme song, but yeah, the first one. Yeah, your original was probably the best. I think it felt like you had put a ton of time into it, and it told this really elaborate story with like no repetition over the entire course of it. It was a person who was upset about a thing that was previously exclusive to their preferred console, now being announced that it was in fact going to not be a platform exclusive and might be on multiple systems, and how everything that they believed was a lie, and they were betrayed by these devs.
By the publisher.
By the publisher, not even devs.
Yeah.
Right.
A money-hungry publisher,
Yeah. But the one I enjoy listening to the most is still Space Asshole.
Yeah.
I'll say...
Which is like the last one that you did, really, I think.
Yeah, because there was like a year gap between any other than that, yeah.
Yeah. I think the best is Space Asshole, but I would say my favorite is actually maybe The Ballad of John Riccatello, just for that the segment where he just like collapses and like...
That was the most time-consuming to make, for sure.
Yeah, I really enjoy that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Talking about forever ago.
My favorite is probably also Space Asshole, because that one is like performable in a way that a lot of them are not. I guess the Fanboy's Lament would be.
You did a re-performance of it for the album.
No, I know, but I mean like
live?
Yeah, I just mean as a song. Like just like, you know what I mean? But I think the best one to me was A Letter to Edge, because I just think musically I was most satisfied with that.
I don't even remember what that song is about.
It's about how Edge gave Killzone 2 a 7 out of 10, and someone
that's like giving Citizen Kane a 7 out of 10.
It's like
right?
giving Citizen Kane a 7, yeah. And he thinks it should get an 11. It was I was really happy with how that song turned out.
Right, that one ends in the best way, which is together 3 thumbs up for Killzone 2, but then that leaves one idle thumb who thinks this game is a little bit dumb.
Right, that was the end of that song. I think that song I think was like lyrically decent. And,
that was very clever. I enjoyed
musically, I liked it the most. All right, Patrick Koski writes, not so much a question, but an observation. Back in olden times thumbs, I want to say around episode 13 or so, Steve talks about how cool it would be to play a game where all you do is explore a mansion in great detail. Imagine if only one of you had planted the idea of there being a ghost as well. I mean, I think we did, and that's where the idea for the Ghost in Gone Home came from.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, Gone Home contains multiple ghosts.
Yeah, I mean, he could have gotten that idea separately, but I think he probably got that idea because of that original conversation.
Yeah, from being a host on Idle Thumbs.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the Ghost game inside of Gone Home. There's the Gone Home original soundtrack. There's the ghost of Uncle Oscar, who I think is canonically present.
True.
Due to the Ouija board shenanigans.
Mm-hmm. There's the ghost who went home.
Yes.
There's the ghost who goes around.
Caldecott medal winner.
There's the ghost who moves around the home, like telekinesing objects.
Right.
Up.
Oh yeah, that's the ghost who went home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the ghost who went home by Steve Gaynor.
Yeah.
Age 7.
Laureate winning.
Yeah.
It's just a ripoff of Casper.
Oh man.
Yeah.
True. Remember when Majesco licensed the contents of Gone Home to make a Casper game for the 3DS, the new 3DS? The ghost who owns itself is what chat says correctly.
Yeah. Ivar Kvarin writes, I think I have listened to all of Idle Thumbs and Important If True, but I'm not sure I know or remember the origin stories of The Wizard, video games, and What is Game? Could you elaborate?
The Wizard... Wizard came from the Wizard being announced as a
Diablo
class
3.
in Diablo 3, and we all went, what? It's just called the Wizard?
Yeah.
Instead of it being the Necromancer or the Sorcerer or
Yeah.
whatever, just like the Wizard.
Mage,
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, it's just the guy with a pointy hat.
It's a wizard. And we just thought it was funny.
And then you wrote the song, because the lyrics of the Idle Thumbs song, The Wizard, actually describe the attributes as then announced of the Diablo 3 class.
The spells that were announced, the like
enhanced spectral blade,
spectral blade, and enhanced spectral blade,
improved spectral blade.
You're right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That was all like,
and the Wizard was described as like a rebellious foe, I think.
He was. Yeah, that was all directly from.
Where did video games come from? Well,
I don't understand what that means.
I think probably us. Well,
video games,
I was described
as just as an exclamation.
I was described as video games Rodkin
is that
because
what he means, do you think?
I don't know, but that's
maybe.
that I think was in part because I didn't play them, and it was funny.
Right. Yeah.
But video games as a declaration has just been a thing that has been funny to us since
2004 era Idle Thumbs.
Yeah, if not before.
Yeah.
We did a video. Man, I wonder if we're just if we have one joke that we do forever. Let's look at this painting of Jay Allard behind us here, and remember that in the Idle Thumbs E3 2005 video, it opens with me dressed as Jay Allard, walking out on stage, pounding the table once, and saying the word video games, and then a theme song plays.
Jake, you said the words video games.
Oh, you're right. I said the words video games, and then that was the opening of that video.
What is Game? I don't actually remember where What is Game came from.
I think that What is Game...
That sounds very Stevian.
Yeah.
I don't remember which of us it came from, but it was just a reductive, sort of dismissive, shitty version of attempting to have deep philosophical arguments and questions about anything in video games.
I think that's right. It probably came from like sort of just
like
being
ludology
tired of
or
like
whatever.
Ludology versus narratology or whatever.
Yeah,
like being,
just like, is there a game that can make you cry? Can games make feelings?
Yeah, what is Game?
Episode 27 is called What is Game?
Sorry, say that again into the mic.
Episode 27 is called What is Game, so I wonder if that's...
It might be in there.
Yeah.
Also, special guest Steve Gaynor.
It's such a Steve formulation.
Yeah.
We eventually answered What is Game with Quap is Game, but that came later.
Yeah.
But What is Game was answered. All right. I think that pretty much sums it up.
Oh, you joked at the end of a podcast telling people to send in questions such as, what is game? 2 or 3 weeks later, when you recorded again, you forgot. I had a ton of emails asking it, says SL128 in chat. You speculated that it was a 4chan prank.
Oh my God. Amazing. Fucking hoisted.
Yeah, hoisted.
Fully hoisted. Early hoisting. Early Idle Thumbs Network.
Game
hoisting.
Dreamer says, what is game is the how do I shot web of early Idle Thumbs, which I think is also correct.
That's very accurate. Oh, perfect timing.
Wow. All right.
Okay,
shut up, timer.
Daniel writes, as the Idle Thumbs Network continues to branch out with new formats and varieties of shows, are there any possible projects you'd like to explore in the future? Presumably projects with limited scope such as Twin Peaks Rewatch or shows with a format similar to Something True but produced as a season.
The podcast idea that I had that I really was excited about doing for a while but will never do was to do a short series of podcasts that were interviewing developers with the sole purpose of asking them what their version of Half-Life 3 would be. I thought that would be really fun, and I still do, but it would take an infinite number of years. Also, everyone having left Valve who like contributed to so much of the narrative design of all those games makes me less enamored by it because I can no longer imagine them off either doing that or listening to that podcast and being completely baffled and annoyed that we were making it.
Since you can't troll those Valve members anymore, the value has decreased.
Yeah, the value has totally decreased.
Yeah.
I mean, also just sort of the magic of, are those guys in a room somewhere working on that secretly and being cheeky about it? That magic is kind of drained out by Chet, Eric, Mark Laidlaw all no longer being there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that was my dream podcast for a while.
Yeah, you talked about that for years.
I know. I actually scheduled interviews to do it this GDC, and then like it just everyone was too busy, and we just didn't do it.
Happens,
yeah.
Yeah, I would love to do more limited series like Something True. I mean, Something True is an incredible podcast, and the existence of it in classic like me psych myself out fashion, the existence of it on the one hand makes me like want to do something like that, and also convinces me that I'll never make anything that good, and therefore like cripples my confidence in wanting to attempt it. I think those guys like put together an incredible show, and I really hope they do more seasons of it so we can put it on our website and like rub and have its like quality rub off on us for doing nothing. It's a really good podcast. I would like. I mean, I would like to do more. I'm honestly, Twin Peaks Rewatch is one of the most enjoyable shows we've done to me as well, and I would totally do more. I would absolutely do more either rewatch or watch along shows like that, because I just think it's
we did
super
we
fun.
did a bout of them for a minute there when we did the first run of Twin Peaks Rewatch. That was right around the same time as we did the end of Mad Men and True Detective weekly.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, neither of those quite were as enjoyable to me because they both were like sort of afterthoughts.
Yep.
They both came in at like the end of those shows.
Yeah.
Whereas Twin Peaks Rewatch, doing it right from the beginning, gave it the feeling of like a project that it's and now when we go in to do the current season of Twin Peaks, it feels like we're building on like I love it. I would totally do more of those.
Nick.
The Nick Brecken podcast episode 300 clearly
you say 3 through 300.
yeah I mean,
you gotta catch up. We gotta catch up the thumbs.
It's a lot of recording, so it'll be a while.
There's a Nick Brecken podcast that would be a very good podcast. I don't know what it would. I don't have a pitch for you, but I'm certain that such a thing exists in the ether.
Oh yeah,
maybe.
Oh man, in chat. Oh no! Stop alarm. In chat, SL128 proposed JP LeBreton's Doomcast of just him talking about each Doom map for 20 minutes, and then JP showed up in chat and said, "My ears are burning in hell."
Very good.
Yeah.
Evan Parker asks, "How do you manage to be on for 1 to 3 podcasts a week?" I would say that question is very much in the eye of the beholder, and it's
one's onness.
Up for debate whether the premise of your question is even true. I don't know the answer to that question.
The answer is to be exhausted and feel like you're probably putting way too much of your life into doing podcasts.
Yeah.
The last couple of months have been actually really tough to stay on top of all this stuff because because of my wedding and Chris's multi-week vacation, and it meant we had to bank a ton of important if trues early, and then Twin Peaks coming back in a way where they decided to put 4 episodes out on one day. I feel like we do 1 Idle Thumbs a month, 1 Twin Peaks rewatch a week, and 1 important if true a week, but somehow
plus a Ruination cast
every month, but it's somehow, which is a 2.5 podcasts a week. Yeah. But it feels like 5 podcasts a week.
It really does.
And I don't know how.
Well, because each one requires prep, requires the recording, and then requires editing.
I'm really happy with the output that Idle Thumbs has going on right now, especially when Something True was running at the same time.
Plus sort of posting Something True, posting Idle Weekend.
You do the book club.
Which we don't make. Oh, yeah, I do the book club, so I have an additional podcast a month to record and edit.
We're pushing a ton of content right now, Chris.
Yeah, it's intense. It's a lot.
Especially now that we decided to put them all up on YouTube as well.
That's true. Yeah, the video component actually adds an additional marginal effort on top of that, because now I have to edit them as video podcasts.
Oh yeah. Also, Nick was basically dying for a month, which was interesting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You seem fine now.
We also banked so many episodes right when you were at your most sick that we put out the Q&A episode on the feed last week, and it was just to listeners, it must feel like you've just been sick in perpetuity.
that one day where we recorded on Saturday,
we did an important if true thumbs, and
that was or
a double important.
I went home and just still had a fever that day. I came in and recorded that. I think it was we did 2 podcasts and I was feverish the entire time. That was. Whew. Sometimes you really got to just mentally drag yourself into it, and then it's fine, and then you get done and you're happy that it happened.
Nick Brecken, how do you manage to stay quote sick for 1 to 3 podcasts a week?
Right. Yeah.
Chris, how do you manage to stay spicy? Never. How do you manage to make Chris stop saying, "Oh my God, we just recorded an important if true just now"? And you didn't say "stay spicy" at the end.
Yeah, because we didn't finish it.
Shit! No! Why did I say it? Why did I ruined it? I just
Jake.
surfaced this fact that it's guaranteed going to get put in the episode now. Oh no, because we didn't.
It was gonna get put in anyway.
Maybe it wasn't. We weren't really in a stay spicy emotional state, and then I just brought it to
we
the
weren't
fore.
staying spicy.
No. Oh, I ruined everything.
Hoisted.
Yeah, hoisted for sure. Reggie Clark says, if you guys could remake any game, what would it be? If not a game, what licensed product would you like to make a game out of?
Remake any game.
Yeah. Do you think that means like do a sort of reboot style remake, or does that mean like historically
it's
alter?
Like you get to do your take on that game with its license. I think is probably what they meant.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe TIE Fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good choice.
I really loved that game. And the reason I say that is mainly because that isn't. I say that because not because I think I would be amazing at it, but because there isn't that genre.
The world would benefit from a like that level of complexity cockpit adventure, like cockpit action adventure experience.
Yeah, with a strong narrative, but not one that's like overbearing and annoying. It's just like just enough of it to kind of put a cool tone over the whole thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I would take the SimCity license and do my like 1920s the like black and white, just fucking Empire State Building
original Rise of Skyscrapers, basically. Yeah, that's really good.
That game I want to make.
Would you start with like an existing sort of like semi-agrarian?
I think you'd go from like Reconstruction to like I don't know when you'd stop, but somewhere in there. Yeah.
So you'd start the game with like an existing town that you have to then. That's kind of how Cities in Motion works.
Yeah. It would be some kind of hybrid
cool
between
model.
those.
Yeah. That'd be interesting.
Well, you start with a New York where there's a ton of green space on all the where it's now just full.
Yeah.
But there's the little tiny dumpy village.
Yep.
Yeah, the reason like downtown New York has all the weird streets that aren't part of the grid is because that was the original New York.
Yeah,
that's like what New York was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be really cool if you started in like Lower Manhattan.
You could do a San Francisco that works very similarly to that as well,
true.
where you have basically the Embarcadero and a couple little things down there, but then like.
Do you think the bay would get filled in like over time?
Oh, that would be really good if you landfill out all the extra areas, and then also you have the entire sort of out to the bay and Sutro Baths moving, or out to the ocean and Sutro Baths moving out west, which is sort of like the natural residential growth of San Francisco, and then the commercial growth was fill.
That would be an interesting way to gate like acreage, because in San Francisco you'd have like the bay before it was filled in and the coastline was expanded, and then on the western side of the city you'd have just like unbuildable sand.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, until a certain year threshold,
until you have the technology.
It's like Crusader Kings. It's like the way Crusader Kings works. Where it's like you're making all these choices, but there's historical events, or like Hearts of Iron, that historical events that just like assert themselves, and then like the possibility space changes to. Yeah, that'd be a really cool way to build a city game. Yeah, and it totally like putting it in the era of the original like the first wave of skyscrapers would like really.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Like that. Yeah. That's cool.
I guess that's not technically a remake.
Well, no, he says if not a game, what licensed product would you like to make a game out of?
Oh, whatever. Half-Life 3 is fine.
Darren Hinchy asks, what would the title be of each of your autobiographies as chosen by the other two?
That's a fucking hard question.
That's really hard.
Yeah.
I think Nick's would be If I Did It.
That's correct.
No, I don't know.
Oh man, Jake's would probably be Hoisted.
It can't just be a meme. New rule: it can't just be an Idle Thumbs joke.
Fair enough.
I think Jake's would be the man who everyone sounded like.
That is a saga. It is an ongoing saga.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Just the way that people, the more they're around you, the more they appropriate your speech patterns and just
okay, I see. Yeah.
In some rise of Jake Rodkin.
So I'm like a reluctant but present meme.
Yeah.
You could also add to that the fact that people often confuse people with him on the podcast.
Oh, that's true.
Just like the actual sound of the voice.
Yeah.
The sound of the voice is the name.
The sound of the voice.
The sound of the voice. Yeah, that's a better
Jake Rodkin story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what Chris's autobiography is called.
Does it have to be an autobiography? Could it be a biography? Could it be like a biography with an angle?
I wasn't even thinking about it in that context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chat suggests space asshole, which is also not allowed. Oh, they also suggested that mine would either be garbage or a history of video games.
History of video games
is really good. That's quite good.
Yeah.
Garbage. It's not bad.
Garbage could be any of ours.
Garbage
let's be honest
could be,
here.
garbage is just the collective Idle Thumbs host biography.
Nick Brecken's silent audiobook. The other one that was suggested by chat that would totally apply to any of us, but mostly me and Chris, is
just a fart
just
sound.
Just a fart sound?
P-PERT, P-R-R-T. When we were starting the original Idle Thumbs website, our colleague Merrick Bronsting, a Dutchman, used to always use the 4-letter word P-R-R-T,
Pert.
And it was years before I realized
that it was like
that was supposed to be a fart. Yeah, that was like
just
like yeah. I
always think of it as like like a tonal sort of trumpety, like just like something.
I think you're right. I think that's accurate.
My mouth fart game was on point right then.
I know that was really good. I can't do the pert fart. But I thought I for years thought that was a weird like just Dutch sort of equivalent of like psh, like just dismissive sound, and I just always interpreted it as pert.
Chat is way better at naming our biographies than we are. They suggested that Nick's be called internalized.
That's
and
good.
That Chris's is interesting, you'll never hear the rest. No. Video games is 2 words.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Eric Hall says, I would like to use my question to endorse the podcast Something True.
Interesting is what JP just suggested.
Interesting .
Sorry, your question?
Eric Hall says, I would like to use my question to endorse the podcast Something True, which is possibly the best podcast of the Idle Thumbs network and one of the best podcasts out there generally. Any regular listener to any Idle Thumbs podcast will know that is very high praise. The first season is complete. Go get it. Seconded.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah.
Also, it was couched at the end with, which means that it's really, really good. Right. But it started off with just like a really sort of subtle, sort of just polite dunk on us of like, it's a good podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We had nothing to do with it. Let the record show that our friends made it, who are really talented and good at podcasting. Also, neither of them had podcasted before, so they just walked onto our website and just like,
I
walked onto our website they actually leapt from the moon with a basketball in their hands and like the most savage dunk of all time, and then they just drilled through the earth and came out the other side. But when the contact was made, it was to leave 8 episodes of the best content on our site. So, that's nice of them.
That's exactly correct. Let's see. Trevor says, describe the best meal of your life. Was it spicy?
By the way, your autobiography would just be called Stay Spicy at this point. That's clearly, if it was an autobiography.
Oh, no.
That'd be Stayed Spicy.
I think depending on what time in your life it is written, because first it would be Stay Spicy. The middle-aged guy who's sort of trying to get people like identity reconstruction would be Stayin' Spicy with an apostrophe.
Still spicy.
And then still spicy, and then I stayed spicy.
Right, yeah. The Paul Simon sort of like yeah.
Stayin' spicy, I stayed spicy, like just, and then at the end it would be spicy, a life considered.
Best meal.
I don't know if I can remember my best meal. The meals that are always the most enjoyable to me are ones in a, like I'm not a big fine dining person, but a like above average restaurant with a handful of friends in a situation where there's a great server, or the chef or the owner of the restaurant somehow becomes aware of our table, and the amount of food that shows up is way out of control compared to what is intended, or is just being chosen and recommended by the staff. So like the good social experience plus the restaurant deciding that they're going to make your night really good is always the best. But I don't know if I have a single meal because I've never like gone above a certain restaurant quality threshold. No, I just lied. The best meal that I think I've had was probably going to Nobu Sushi.
Oh shit!
In Los Angeles.
Oh wow!
With Dominic Armato, who is the voice actor of Guybrush Threepwood and is now the food critic
Crazy.
for the Phoenix newspaper.
Oh, nice.
And I had never had sushi before.
Oh.
And my sense of sushi was ruined.
When was this?
It was in like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Sitting down and him just saying, I'll order, and basically money was no object, and it was like 6 of us and him.
Wow.
And just like, so it was all the things I just described, except that it was
also in a like transcendent.
It was like
Yeah.
some of the best food I've ever had, and also all the food was handpicked by a person who later went on to become a restaurant critic by trade.
Right.
Like, that was a good meal. So
Yeah,
okay,
bet.
I found it.
Man,
I
I feel like you'd have some good answers to this, Nick.
I think I have a decent answer. It's not a restaurant answer. Thanksgiving, when I was like 16, we went to my aunt's house, which is in the middle of nowhere in Michigan. And it's this old colonial house that's essentially like in a town of, I don't know, 50 people or something. It's just the most like Thanksgiving area possible. There are just cornfields everywhere. And we went to have Thanksgiving, and halfway through the day, she lost power. Like the house just lost power, and it never came back. And so we had to basically rescue Thanksgiving as a sort of like, it was me and my parents and my grandmother and my aunt and I think 1 or 2 other family members, and we had to all come together and just like figure out, how are we going to cook a turkey with no power? How are we going to fucking do this with no power? What the hell are we going to do? Like, we ended up grilling the turkey and like just doing weird shit, like just like somehow making biscuits on the grill, and then somebody was over here, like it just turned into this insane thing. And then there's like a picture of us all by candlelight eating this like weird ad hoc Thanksgiving that we just threw together.
That sounds awesome. That's
It was like
That's
a really good moment. And I'm actually, for the first time in a long time, going back to that house to have Thanksgiving this year, so I'm really excited.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's really cool. This is probably not like the single greatest meal or whatever I've had, but it was a recent experience and very notable and like wonderful. It was actually on our recent trip to Paris. We were recommended by, we went to like Versailles on just like a bike tour, and had this like hilarious Irish tour guide who lives in Paris, and as a bike tour guide, and he gave us a recommendation for a family-owned restaurant in, I think, like the 11th arrondissement called L'Aubergiade. And he's like, just go there, and it's great, and it's like €20 for like a 5-course meal or whatever. Like, it's just great. And just compliment them. And we're like, all right. So we went there that evening, and we didn't have a reservation. And it was amazing. It was like the platonic ideal of just a great neighborhood restaurant. It was a family-owned restaurant, and the entire front of house was the owner and his daughter, who was our server, and it was just like we got there, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, we do not have a table. Come back in 45 minutes." And we're like, "All right, great." And we came back, and when we came back, he was so excited that we had like. Actually came back, and he's like, "Oh, mon ami, like, oh, sit down." And we sit down, and we're like, "Okay, great." And he's like, brings us the little sort of complimentary, amuse-bouche, and we're like, "Oh, it's great." And he's like, "Oh, wine," and he like brings us wine on the house. He like serves us. We had just like all of the most, like, I got escargot because I'm like,
I'm sorry, Chris. Nope, time's up.
I've never had escargot. I'm just gonna get this. It was fucking delicious. Everything we ate was unbelievably good. It was incredibly affordable, and we sat down at like 9 p.m. We didn't leave until almost midnight. The place has an official closing time of 10:15 p.m. At the time we left, there were still people like walking in the door and like hugging the guy and like going through the whole thing and sitting down. The place was packed, and it was just the most. It was such like the epitome of like perfect restaurant dining. It was like affordable and delicious and friendly and just lots of people, great atmosphere, delicious food. it's just like everything you want from your local place. That's like, yep, I would, if I lived in this neighborhood, I would just be in here every week. This is ridiculous. It is just the most welcoming, wonderful combination of everything you want out of a restaurant. And I don't know if it was like technically the best meal I've ever had. I mean, probably not. But it was, in terms of like hitting everything that like a great neighborhood restaurant would strive for, it was totally that. It was L'Aubergiade in Paris.
Nice.
So, yeah. Fiona Martin says, do any of you have a memory as a child that's clear as day, but you have no idea why that particular memory still remains? Love, Fiona. I probably do. I mean, I have some that are memorable for obvious reasons. The ones that are memorable for not obvious reasons are probably ones that I can't call to mind right now, because every once in a while I'll just think of them and it's something totally like not noteworthy and boring.
Yeah, I have a memory of my cousin Amy getting a like stuffed like plush hot air balloon for Christmas when I was probably like 2 years old. That's all I got from that whole window of my life. Don't know why.
Yeah. I remember a grade school teacher teaching us that the way you can remember how to spell the word separate is by pronouncing it separate. And that way you won't misspell it with an E instead of an A. Separate. And there's nothing catchy about it. It's not like a mnemonic that has anything in it, but it's stuck in my head for over 2 decades. Over 2 decades, yeah.
I don't think I have an answer for this question. That's a really difficult question.
You of all people who have nothing but weird memories.
But I remember the context of all of it. I mean, isn't the question is literally like you have the memory, but you don't know why you have it, right? I mean,
also your memory is in fact too strong. It's a curse.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I might need to pass for a minute and come back to it if I remember something.
Well, we could maybe tie it into this next question. Mitch Mastroni says, "Hi Thumbs, what does your 12-year-old self think of your 2017 self? Are they impressed? Disappointed? Confused?"
12.
Yeah. What was I doing at 12? I feel like 12 is an age I don't have a lot of memories of.
96 for me. For you
me
too, I guess so.
Yeah. 1992 for Jake.
92 and 3. Yeah.
God, what the hell was I doing at 12? I was probably reading like Star Wars books.
Yeah.
So you'd probably think it was cool that you wrote a Star Wars video game.
That's actually true.
I mean,
that would actually be very impressive to my 12-year-old self.
Yeah.
Yeah, my 12-year-old self would not know what to do with the fact that I helped to design and direct the 5th Monkey Island game. And then I'd have to be like, but it was pretty compromised, dude. It was like for the Wii. Yeah, you would think the Wii is cool. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I mean, it's cool, but I would have to like couch everything that I would tell to my 12-year-old self, because I think my 12-year-old self.
You made a Monkey Island for a Nintendo console?
Right.
Like,
my 12-year-old self would be blown away by my career, but I would have to be like, but then also be like, okay, actually, it's cool. Because so many of the things that I'm doing are distressingly directly what my 12-year-old self would think is cool.
I wrote a new adventure game with Ron Gilbert, the creator of Monkey Island. But it's like, it's like...
But you're like, it's just a job.
No, I just mean like the cave, I'm like happy with parts of it, but it's not something that... My 12-year-old self wouldn't play that game and think it's like an incredible game, probably.
Yeah, a lot of my messages to my 12-year-old self would be like, I actually did all the things that I thought would be cool, or many things I thought would be cool when I was 12, and they weren't actually fulfilling. The things that were fulfilling are all so many of the other things that I'm doing in my life. And 12-year-old me would go, tell me more. What happens in Monkey Island 5?
Yeah. No, that's totally true.
Yeah.
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 That was a good question.
My 12-year-old self would probably not be impressed by the things that preoccupy me now. Like all the shit that people give me for like recommending a shoehorn on Important If True, all of that like scorn would be shared by my 12-year-old self, who would be confused by the things that I bother to care about at this point in my life. Probably. That's probably a fairly universal
I think so.
sentiment.
Yeah.
Do you have anything, Nick, on that?
Not really.
Your 12-year-old self would just be like,
Kind of. I think that might actually be the case. I think my 12-year-old self would be like, oh, that makes sense. All right, see you in, 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Yeah. My 12-year-old self would be really happy that I've worked out a lot of the weird latent issues with my parents.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm not even going there. Yeah. That's not. That is.
Oh wait, what are you saying, Chris?
Nothing. All right. Well, thanks for joining us for Idle Thumbs Ruination Online. We'll put this up on the Idle Thumbs podcast feed, which may well be where you're listening to it. And if you are a backer of our Patreon at one of the higher tiers, look out for the next post that we make on the Patreon page at patreon.com/idlethumbs so you can post your questions to be answered on the next Ruination. And another episode of Idle Thumbs coming up. You can also send regular email to idlethumbs at questions@idlethumbs.net or to importantiftrue at questions@importantiftrue.com. And that's that, I think.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye. God, some of these are so shitty. What's the most annoying, disastrous iPhone sound that could be used for the timer?
That is actually my alarm every morning.
That's it. I think that's it.
Because it's trash?
Yeah.
Are we online right now? Can people hear us?
Yeah, they can hear us. Please, Chris.
That I cannot help but get out of bed to stop it.
Yeah, I think that's it this week. No, you found it already. I think we already found it.
Oh, there's a worse one somewhere, and I can't remember what
God,
it's
no,
called.
don't make it the thing that wakes me up every morning. That's oh God,
No, that's good.
terrible.
That's good. No,
No, it's
good.
terrible to hear your alarm every
It's good. It's
2
good. It's
minutes.
good. It's good. Let's do that. No, it's good.
Please.
No, it's fine.
But are you sure you don't want to be like a dad coffee commercial? Like, God, that one and the piano riff are the worst iPhone.
That one makes me want to actually barf.
Oh, so my ex-girlfriend, that was her alarm, and this was my alarm. I'm not even kidding.
Oh, everything's terrible.
God, you two were the lamest.
Yeah. I mean, we were intentionally lame, but yes.
Yeah.
Someone said to use by the seaside. What is that?
It's-
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, sure,
the
yeah.
We Shop channel, basically. No, I'm sorry. It's going to be that fucking trashy piano.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Even worse.
Oh.
No, that one's not worse.
Oh, it is. Oh, you're looking for piano riff?
It's so lame.
I love it.
All right. Should we get this shit going?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Idle Thumbs Ruination Online for June 2017. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
And I'm Jake Rodkin.
We are going to answer questions posed to us by high-level patrons from our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/idlethumbs.
High-functioning patrons.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We, like last month, we're giving ourselves a comfortable 3-minute timer this time around on our questions. We've got a great timer sound that Nick loves.
That's fine. We'll hear it later.
So
It's from the iPhone Classic Sounds library.
yeah. Mm-hmm. So should we get going?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's ruin our lives.
So I'm just doing these in chronological order from when they were added to the Patreon question gathering post. So we're kicking it off with a question from Brian Bannon, who says, any chance of bringing back the True Detective podcast for its season 3? I know season 2 was a hastily assembled dumpster fire, but maybe the time off between seasons has let them actually come up with a good story again.
I have not thought about that at all. I
haven't either. Yeah.
I had no personal intentions of doing that because I'm already feeling pretty podcasted up in life.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
who knows how we'll feel at the time?
Yeah. Do we know when True Detective is coming back?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Do we know anything about it at all?
I don't think so, other than they're just doing it.
Has it been okay? So they haven't
Yeah.
said like coming 2018 or something.
I don't know.
Maybe.
We should know more. Starting strong with this Ruination cast.
I mean,
Well,
one of the things that was fun for me about doing Twin Peaks Rewatch was that it felt really low stakes because it was we were rewatching a show
Right.
that had been off the air for decades, and that show is also just like, obviously that show is has serious stuff in it. It has really intense and distressing stuff in it, but it also doesn't take itself that seriously most of the time.
Right.
So it felt like a sort of just a fun thing to do on the side. Twin Peaks season 3 is very different than that.
It feels way more like an assignment, right? I mean, doing the podcast.
Twin Peaks season 3?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I like have bad feelings about, but I think the sort of people are paying attention to it, including us.
Yeah,
like it's
that's
on
true.
a timetable.
Yeah.
It has an audience, and it's not just like us sharing some thoughts about a thing that we wanted to talk about that we found.
It's still no. I mean, that's true. That's a fair point. Although I will say that having done like almost 30 episodes of it, or more than 30 episodes, in fact, of it before we started season 3, it made me so comfortable doing that podcast that it doesn't really feel like an assignment to me. Doing the True Detective season 2 podcast felt more like an assignment because, I mean, I think there's a lot to like in the second season of True Detective, but there's also a lot to be sort of unenthusiastic about, and I don't know.
I think I would have actually enjoyed doing a True Detective season 2 rewatch podcast more than doing a True Detective season 2 watch along podcast.
I think I agree.
Knowing the entire shape of that season and being able to be like, now that we all know what it is, let's talk about what's there. On a re-examination would have probably been fun.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say the first 2 episodes are written, and David Milch is apparently working with...
what is he, like Oz or something? What
Deadwood.
Is he? Oh, Deadwood, right.
I forget what else.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
All right, that's interesting. I never... Yeah, I had to... Deadwood is everyone's favorite thing. It took me a few attempts to get into it, but I eventually did, and I really liked it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. I remember you being a big fan. I would like to do more... I really, really like doing Twin Peaks Rewatch, and I would like to do more of this TV, either rewatch or watch along podcast. It's just a matter of finding the right ones.
Yep.
But I have a lot of fun doing that.
Yep.
Also, Michael Sowen replied in the comments to this with the correction from dumpster fire to Dempster fire. So I appreciate Michael Sowen using the appropriate.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, historical name. All right. Answer to your question is we don't know. Nick Cornick writes, this is actually along very similar lines, I guess, says, given the extra time and budget that would be needed to create another podcast for the network, what type of podcast would you make and why? So this is just like if we were in a position where we, or I guess the premise is like if it doesn't have to be squeezed into every available minute we have in our lives, which is often what podcasting feels like. If we somehow were in a magical situation where we just had extra time and money, what kind of podcast would we make?
Like a weekly video game review podcast, maybe some kind of like
news discussion.
Updates you on like the E3 conferences and maybe some funny songs. I don't know.
Wow. I don't know. I mean I feel like I said this exact same thing last Ruination.
I think we got asked the same question, basically. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I don't think it is the exact same question I'm saying.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think
similar
it's
question.
Similar question. Yeah, this is framed a little bit differently, but basically the same. Yeah, I mean, I loved doing. I loved listening to, and just sort of following the progress of Something True from Duncan Fife and Alex Ashby on our network, and something like that would be super fun to do. I've never really seriously put a lot of time into thinking about a podcast that would require that much research and prep, because it's enough. It's like in a lot of ways already more than I feel like we can handle doing the number of podcasts we do now with the considerably lower amount of prep they require than a show like that. But if time was no object, I would love to do something like that. You know what I would like to do? I would like to do a show where I wrote music, where the podcast was like me writing music as a way to sort of force myself to write more music recreationally. If I had more time and effort, I think it'd be really interesting to have a podcast where the content of the podcast is like musical ideas as they are sort of formed and turned into something. Kind of like if you ever heard Song Exploder. Song Exploder is a really cool podcast where the host interviews musicians, and then they kind of do this from the other direction, where they take a song that already exists and they tease it apart and go like, oh, and then I thought, like, what if I'll put some horns in? And then they'll have just the isolated horn line that you can hear, and they'll talk about sort of where was I when I thought of this idea and so on. I think it'd be interesting to do that from the other direction, where it's like, I'm going to try and like start with an idea and layer it all together in a way that people can follow. I think that would be fun.
That'd be a cool podcast. I would listen to that podcast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I definitely do not have time for that.
Let's see. I mean, I'm in a similar place to you, Chris, I think, in that if I had the time and resources doing something, I would do me exploring a musical composition that I developed. No, just a more produced podcast would be a thing that would be really fun to try and do. But even doing the ones where you just sit down and fart stuff into a microphone take up so much time. The true podcast that I want to exist in the world, that I want to will into being, is the Matlock theme podcast, but I don't think we should say any more lest it become real.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. It's a good theme, though. One of the great themes.
Yeah, Matlock theme. One of the
infinitely re-listenable.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a lot to say about the theme song to Matlock, I think.
I got it. The theme to Matlock periodically gets itself stuck in my head, and that happened to me like 2 days ago. And once the Matlock theme gets stuck in my head...
Nope, sorry.
That's my podcast. My audio podcast is going to be about that theme. That sound.
Nick's time to get up. It's first day of school.
All right. Julian de la Prados writes, once upon a time in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which ruled much of Central Europe, there were lords and peasants. The lords owned all the land, but the peasants were granted portions of it to work for themselves. The peasant would then work his little plot and the lord's. The bigger the peasant's plot, the longer he had to work the fields of the lord who had granted it to him. The system abolished by Emperor Joseph II in 1848 was called robot. The system was abolished, but the word, of course, survived. 72 years later, in 1920, a Czech fellow called Karel Čapek was writing a play. It was a rather spooky futuristic piece about a factory that produced willing servants out of biological matter. Mr. Čapek decided to use the Latin root labor and call these manufactured servants labori. And that would have been that, were it not for Karel's brother Joseph, who suggested calling them robots instead. Karel took the suggestion and made the changes. The play was performed under the title RUR, Rossum's Universal Robots, and was such a success that the word arrived in English 2 years later. This is from David Forsyth in the Etymologicon, page 91. So, to sum, robot comes from Austro-Hungarian word for a system of indentured servitude. Robots as we know them today were almost called labori. My question for you is, are there any phrases or words that you've always been curious about? That is the most outrageous prologue to ask that question, but I'm happy about it.
That email was sent into Important If True, and it was in the sort of discussion rota for a couple weeks, but we never got to it.
I did read that.
That is such a good story of the background of that name. This week in Labori news.
Well, I've seen people have definitely written into us with the thing about robots coming from that play.
No, this whole email.
Okay, I somehow missed.
Inbox.
I didn't know that first part. I somehow must have missed that in our email. But yeah, that is incredible. Are there any? I don't know. It's hard for me to answer this because
a hard question.
I enjoy etymology so much that typically, if I'm curious about it, I will actually just go look it up, and I find it pretty interesting. So especially in the age of the internet, it's hard to sort of. You're like, I've just always wondered what this word means because you literally have a device in your pocket that will tell you in seconds. So I don't know.
This is really tough.
Yeah.
The problem is the main examples of this would surely be words that it never occurred to me to even think about, which means I'm not going to be able to think of them
this podcast
right now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you guys have a favorite one that you know of that we're happy about? Like, because I think on the podcast I've told my looking up of the word ye actually being the, which is my favorite thing.
Remind me?
Okay. I will tell because I'm always happy to talk about it. How you see like ye old shop and ye old pub and that sort of thing. The letter Y there, when it used to be handwritten, or like in that was actually not a Y in that word. It was the character thorn, which kind of looks like if you take a Y but then sort of join the top together. And that actually makes a sound in older forms of English. So... it would in fact be the old pub. It would be, and
that's really cool.
when the printing press showed up, like movable type that came from Germany, and German didn't have thorn, so typesetters in the English language just adapted to the most similar shaped letter, apparently. And we ended up getting a bunch of
so the most similar shaped letter was at two different letters next to each other?
No.
Oh.
Thorn plus E was THE was a way to and that turned into YE.
Oh, right. It went the other way around, of course. Yeah. I see.
Yeah.
Huh.
Because like ye for like a form of you is different than ye as the. And they've sort of both turned into just ubiquitous old-timey language.
Right.
But one of them is because...
So ye as the and ye as you actually have totally different etymological roots?
Yes. If you walked...
That's amazing.
If you walked into some old-timey place and said... Hello, yon traveler. Where is ye old pub? He would be like, the old pub. It's over there, and you feel bad about yourself.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
That's really good. That's so interesting because that misconception has created an entire, like that has become such a cliche.
Yeah.
And it is entirely inaccurate.
Yeah.
Ye old garbage dump.
If I'm wrong about that, I'll be fully hoisted. But I remember looking that up and being very, very happy about that information. Yeah.
Wow. Huh.
Yep.
I like that a lot. That's tops anything I could have.
Yeah, no, I think that's...
I thought I had told that on the podcast before. I probably
I don't
Maybe
think
you
I've
have.
ever
I
heard
certainly
that.
don't
one time there
remember.
was cheese in my car. This one time I saw a brain.
This funniest thing happened when I tried to flush a toilet the other day.
Next question.
Resme asks, do you guys tend to dream more in autumn, or is it just me?
What?
I don't even know how to like answer. Like, think about this question.
What is the? Wait, sorry. I'm sorry that I was not paying enough attention.
Do we dream more in autumn, or is it just...
Yeah, Resme says, do you guys tend to dream more in autumn, or is it just me? My sense of seasons is so entirely trash. I never have this. You can ask my wife. This is a constant thing. She will I've lived in.
Well, it's because you live in San Francisco.
No, I know, but
we're having either sweltering heat or rain in the middle of June right now.
No, I know. Well, so maybe it's not entirely my fault, but it still drives her crazy. She'll ask. She's newer to San Francisco. I've been in San Francisco for most of my life, and she has not. And she'll be like, oh yeah, so this is like what it's like in August or something, right? I'm like, I don't know. I literally don't ever know anything about the seasons at all. I don't remember what temperature it's ever supposed to be. Like, if someone says, like, boy, the weather's sure weird this time of year, I'm like, I guess
it is, for
sure, if you say so.
Whenever anyone says that, just agree with them.
I do, but I'm like, yeah.
I mean, everyone drives bad here, and the weather's pretty notable today. Like,
we're the
whatever.
Best drinkers.
It's
people
true.
are really
the best
bad
drinkers. It's all true.
Yep.
All the things that they say are true. They're like, oh, have you noticed you dream more in the autumn? You're like, yeah.
It's totally.
The idea of dreams being on a seasonal fluctuation
dreams.
is weird, and I have never thought about that before, and I didn't know that was even a thing that it could be conceived of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that means actually that you're just sleeping better in the autumn, right? Isn't it supposedly the case that you dream quite often, but you don't necessarily always remember it? And so it could be that if you're remembering those dreams, you're sleeping more deeply or something.
It's possible.
Or the entire opposite.
I mean, a lot of people have like seasonal allergies that get fired up in autumn. So that would be
inject themselves.
Like, that's how I mark the seasons mainly. Is like, oh, I'm sneezing. It's fall or spring.
I've never had allergies of any kind, so maybe that has contributed to never having to pay attention.
Yeah.
Also, just the way that I choose to dress. Like, I don't own shorts. I don't own open-toed shoes. Like, I don't wear T-shirts. So, like, it's sort of irrelevant. Like, even if I know it's gonna be hot, I'm not gonna put shorts on anyway. So it really doesn't actually. No element in my life is affected by the seasons.
Maybe they mean
theory.
like your aspirations increase.
Oh, like, do you dream more? Like, do you dream bigger in autumn?
Yeah.
I mean.
It's like a crisp situation.
Yeah. I will say
maybe it's
that
a Dreamcast 99 reference. Or whatever. Right? Didn't it come out in September or something? It probably did.
Thinking. What was it that it was supposed that it was said to have been?
I don't fucking remember.
Man, I will say that even though I don't actually personally have any sort of
dream more on
never mind, I guess.
Yeah.
I think Nick's right. You dream more around the time that the Dreamcast initially launched. That's the it sort of created a like dimple in dream time.
Forrest Butler says, First,
no,
I
that name isn't real.
I was about to skip someone. Aaron Field says,
that's a more normal name.
Play more board games, stream board games, talk about board games. Have you played any board games recently? Digital virgins count, I guess.
I have been.
Yes.
You've been playing a lot of board games.
No.
My board gaming time is basically dropped off the map 100% at this point. After sort of being, a deep board. Have you guys noticed that in autumn and summer and winter and spring you don't play a lot of board games right now?
Yeah.
We used to talk a big game about how we should stream some board games. Like we used to talk about wanting to do like an Imperial 2030 stream and some other stuff like that, but we've never bothered to do it.
Mm-hmm.
As we've also talked about, this table, if you took the TV or the monitor out of the middle of it, would be fantastic for board game streaming.
That's true.
Just put a board over that hole.
Wow, it would be.
Well, why would putting that just?
It's just a big round table with a bunch of cameras pointing on it. We've already got the room.
Oh, sure.
It's just
all you need is
you
the board
hang
game
one pointing down from the ceiling.
That's true.
That's the pro move.
All you need is a board game and a desire to play board games.
I have board games. We all probably own board games.
Yeah.
No, I haven't played them in a while either. Board games require such specific, or regularly playing board games requires such a specific confluence of factors in your life, and the majority of them do not exist in mine currently. You know what? Actually, there's one board game I've been playing occasionally recently with my wife, which is Scrabble. We've been playing Scrabble in the evenings occasionally recently. Yeah, I don't know why, but she just got really into the idea of playing Scrabble. So we bought a pretty nice, I think one of the Scrabble sets they sell now is just like what they call the Nostalgia Edition, but it actually just is a nice wooden Scrabble set it doesn't look like a piece of shit. And it's fun. I played a lot of Words with Friends for a while, so I got really good at Scrabble. But I hadn't played it in a while, and now we play it as an actual physical board game, which is just not something I don't think I had done since I was a kid. So that's fun.
Yeah.
That's probably not the kind of board game
Aaron
Field means, but it's my only recent example.
Yeah, we're not talking about like Lords of Waterdeep.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It is a good game.
It is a good game. I've played it once. Forrest Butler says, what are your favorite comfort foods to make and consume? I tried homemade miso soup after Chris endorsed it on the forums, and I have been seeking out new comfort foods since. I think I endorsed it on a podcast, didn't I? Or not? I don't remember if I endorsed it on Important If True or not.
In front of me, so.
Okay, I probably didn't. I might have been just on the forums. Sub-question for Chris, what's your favorite brand of miso paste? Man, Nick, I feel like you'd be good at this.
Nick,
you have so many good food endorsements.
Snack preparation, go.
Wait, what? That was for you, the miso paste question. Okay, yeah. Man, what's my go-to comfort foods?
Yeah, to make or eat. To make and eat, I guess.
God, BLTs probably is on that
good
list.
BLT is good.
I'm doing that a lot lately.
Yeah, I got into a big BLT phase several months ago.
Yeah.
Just got to get really good tomatoes.
Yeah, which is tough.
We're in this. We're getting in that tomato season now. Yeah,
we're close.
Yeah,
not quite there.
Not quite, but the heirloom tomatoes are starting to show up in the grocery store.
Yeah, I don't know. You guys go. I can't think of anything else.
There's a few things I make. Like a good Italian tomato sauce is pretty tough to beat. A thing I've gotten really into recently is because it requires almost nothing, and it's a nice filling meal, is cacio e pepe, which is pasta like spaghetti or linguine or something, some strand pasta with I forget which one it officially is supposed to be, with Parmesan cheese and black pepper, and you sort of saute tons of fresh grated black pepper. You lightly saute it in oil so that it sort of infuses the olive oil, and then you toss the pasta together in the pan with a lot of Parmesan cheese, and it's just and some olive oil, and it all sort of emulsifies into a creamy sauce, and it is so few ingredients, but it's really good. And then another thing that I got really into is a recipe I saw in the New York Times cooking. Actually, the New York Times Magazine is where I first saw it, and now I just find when I need the recipe, I find it in the New York Times Cooking app, which is a great app. And it is a Chinese sort of home cooking comfort meal. It was the last recipe in a column by a Chinese American writer in the New York Times Magazine, and it is tomato, sort of like stir-fried tomato rice, and I should have had this queued up before I started reading. Sorry,
That's true.
I'm terrible, but it's easy to make. And it's really delicious. Oh, here it is. Chinese stir-fried tomatoes and eggs. And it's really fast to make. It takes like 20 minutes. Chinese stir-fried tomatoes and eggs. Look it up. It's great comfort food. You make it with just basics in your pantry, and it's super good.
I just buy a lot of candy.
Like what? You have to share the details.
I don't know, like it's like a sweet tarts maybe, or like some licorice.
Trevor says, "This is not a question, but a
Sorry, just keep going.
This is not a question, but a plea for help. I am a fool and can't for the life of me find where people are collaborating on postcards. Someone help."
No one's collaborating on postcards. For shame.
Yeah. There is a channel in the Idle Thumbs reader Slack called Postcard Conspiracy that, because the Idle Thumbs reader Slack is a free Slack, all messages further back than the most recent 10,000 messages end up are lost to the sands of time. And so that channel is currently empty because the discussion in it has scrolled off into infinity. There should probably be a thread on the forums. Maybe we should make one, or someone listening to this, make a thread on the Idle forums for discussing postcards, because I've seen a few people ask this same question. This is in reference specifically to the postcards that are sent out to backers of our Patreon campaign. These postcards are a sort of branching pseudo choose your own adventure story in which we choose your adventure for you, as the story is revealed month by month in these monthly postcards you get.
Month 4 is going out right now, right?
Yeah, month 4 is going to be sent out within. I'll send out some of them today. The rest will go out by, I would say, Tuesday. By that point, they should all be sent out, and so they have branched into several different threads at this point. So if you are getting those postcards, you are getting different material than other people got, and they're sort of starting to loop back in on themselves, and some of them are diverging into their own kind of side story. And so
we may have overbuilt this slightly.
We did. This next month is even more ambitious, which Nick is the bed Nick has built for himself. Also, the shittier bed you've built for me, because I'm the one who has to logistically make this all work.
I like that our jobs ended up splitting up so that Nick writes a wacky interactive fiction story. I design the goofy garbage that goes on the fronts of these, and then you, Chris, get to just manage the logistics of postal sorting and mail merge.
Yeah,
cool.
I am basically designing. It feels like designing a video game, literally, where I have to think through all of the this path goes this way, and that means that this does this, and I can't really spoil. If I explain too much of the process, it'll spoil how it works. But it is really complicated and requires a lot of management and tracking and organization and spreadsheets. But the upshot is, it means that we are it is certain that the story you get will.
It'll be internally consistent.
Yes.
You'll be told a story and you won't even really know what the possibility space is for the stories you aren't being told.
Right. But
so
you're not going to get one from a different branch.
Unless we fuck it up.
Unless we fuck it up. And if we do, if you get ones that literally don't connect, I guess send us a support email. But that shouldn't happen. I don't think that's happened. But yeah, there should be a place where people can collaborate to piece together the full story. So on the forums, maybe someone will make a thread, or if not,
we'll never know. We'll never know.
Okay, so
Nick, wake up. Good morning.
Alex Schroeder writes, Earlier this week, Kotaku posted an article chronicling the troubled development of Mass Effect Andromeda, with one of the key revealed details being that the game went through a major scope change relatively late in development, going from a large galaxy-exploring game in the vein of No Man's Sky to a much smaller, tightly scripted game like the previous titles. Suffice to say, it didn't go as well as everyone hoped. My question is, as developers, have you ever had a similar situation where you've set out to make one kind of game and for whatever reason ended up making something else? If so, do you think it was the right choice? I don't know. Probably not. I mean, probably not to the degree of what is described in this. I feel like something as extreme as that can happen on two extreme. I'm sure it can happen in any case, but I feel like it's more likely to happen either in the case where, like they're describing here, the budget is so big that certain circumstances will actually require you to make massive changes because, when something's that big, going even a few degrees off course can take you in a completely different direction. Mm-hmm. Or if you look at something like Overwatch, Overwatch is the end result of attempting to make a brand new MMO and it just resetting itself aggressively mid-development when they realized they were not building up to something that was ever going to see the light of day. And so that's one. And then the other thing is if you're making a game that is the team is so small, if it's just you or if it's you and a couple other people, then I feel like you're sort of nimble enough to be like, you know what? I realize, guys, actually we're making a game that really wants to be like this kind of game. I feel like most of our experience has been on the sort of mid-tier of development where you're not really in either situation, right? I mean, have you guys ever worked on something that just ended up becoming something fundamentally different than it started?
None of the stuff I've worked on, especially when it was in pre-production, yes, I've worked on things that have completely changed genres and changed art styles and whatever else, but I don't think I've ever been on a game in production where everyone has a sort of come to Jesus moment that is so big that we're like, just kidding, this game is a roguelike, or, whatever.
Yeah.
It's always been closer to some of the later examples that you gave of just going, actually just cut these four things out of the things that the player can do, or cut this big whole act out of the story because it doesn't actually, it's not what the game is, but that's different, I think, than aggressively being in a place I've never been in a place where I had to make a change so big that I wasn't sure if I was making lemons or making lemonade from lemons, or if I was polishing a turd. I didn't know which way it was going because the changes were so huge. It always felt like, we just have to recalibrate slightly, but that is a small course correction. I mean, there have also been times when I felt like maybe I was polishing a turd, but that's different though. Just knowing your game is not what you expect it to be and that you have to ship is also another different thing. That's just
life.
Just
a reality.
That's just life.
As well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nick, what do you think?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean,
man, Nick, you crashed hard. What is going on?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
No, I haven't really worked on anything that was that large, really, or at least had a major hand in anything that was that big that it could be actually scaled back to that size. I was around at Bethesda when those kinds of games were being made, but I didn't have a huge hand in them. But also those games were just huge and didn't never really get readjusted.
Yeah,
I know of examples where that's happened, but nothing that I've personally worked on.
Yeah, I mean, before I arrived at Irrational, there had been several years spent on a completely different kind of artistic direction for BioShock Infinite that just looked completely different. It was a lot more like BioShock 1 style and color palette, but in the sky. And I mean, it was really cool looking, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
And that was discarded before I got there when they reframed it into the kind of turn of the century Americana look that the game shipped with. And that was it was really fascinating to just browse the old source control
that stuff's
depot.
Always
and
really
look
interesting.
At that,
I played early builds of the original Prey 2, so that was weird.
Oh wow.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Prey 2 meaning the one that just shipped, or
no, like the human head version that was being,
right. But I mean,
the
one
sorry.
that was
yes.
discarded.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
The one that yes, there was.
A different developer was
doing a
Prey.
different Prey 2 that was actually a sequel to the Prey 1 that shipped.
Yeah. I mean, details of that I assume leaked or something at some point. Right?
It was announced.
It was at E3 and
playable.
playable.
Oh,
so,
okay.
yeah.
What kind of game was that?
I mean, it was a semi-open world bounty hunting game where you sort of
right.
You would walk
Now
into
I
like a
remember.
bar and like scan a dude, and you
yeah.
would see like, oh, I need to chase this guy, and then it was a lot of like chase sequences in
I feel
first
like
person.
Blizzard might have the most notorious history of this.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Overwatch, which was the MMO whose name I can't
Titan.
remember. Yeah, it was Titan. But then before that,
Diablo 3.
Diablo 3. Before that, StarCraft Ghost.
Wait, what was-
and Warcraft Adventures.
What was
Yeah.
Diablo 3?
Diablo 3 went
there
underwent
was a-
major changes after release, even.
Well, no, but there was a Blizzard North version of Diablo 3
Oh,
that
that's
they had
right.
started.
Yeah.
But-
that
and
was
then-
just more
well,
But
the-
that's a little different, right? That's just like canceling a game.
yeah, I suppose that's different than the same team kind
I
of
thought when you said
retooling it.
when you mentioned Diablo 3, what you were actually mentioning,
The-
what you were
the
actually referring to
sort
was
of like
Diablo 3
yeah,
finding
internal
itself and
reboot.
changing what it was.
that
when
is,
it
yeah,
that is a
that's
really
all
interesting
both of those
case.
are- yeah.
But Blizzard seems like they historically have no qualms basically throwing around what a game is aggressively until it finds itself or gets canceled, whether or not it's already shipped or not. They'll do that to some degree. It's interesting to look at.
I mean, if there are like early screenshots of like the first StarCraft that are radically different than what they shipped.
Oh, yeah, they look
it's-
crazy, yeah.
It's yeah.
What did Hearthstone? Didn't Hearthstone start as something else? Or
I
like
don't know.
I thought
remember.
Hearthstone started basically as what it was,
Okay,
but as a way
yeah.
more
Well,
skunkworksy
small- yeah, I
thing.
think you're right. I
That's
think that sounds
but I don't
correct.
know.
Yeah.
I'm not a Blizzard knowledgeable person at all.
Sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I forgot to run the timer for that one, which is why we were able to have an enjoyable conversation.
I mean, I will say that in general, in game development, this question's obviously asking about.
Oh wait,
yeah, go
sorry.
ahead.
Did you say the original Diablo? Did I miss that, or did you mention that? Because that is like a perfect
Oh, you're right.
example of this.
That's an amazing.
The fact
example
that
of this.
it was
Yeah. It was a real time.
No,
it
it wasn't
turn-ba-
real time. It was
it-
turn based,
it was a- yes.
and then eventually they realized, oh, this would probably just be real time.
Yeah.
When what they were doing debugging or something, it had it just like 20x speed. I forget the actual like.
Crazy.
Yeah, David
Yeah.
Brevik, who was the
out of
original.
control.
Yeah,
Yeah.
David Brevik was the original co-founder of Condor, which was the small independent game studio that was acquired by Blizzard and became Blizzard North. They were acquired because of Diablo, this game
Yeah.
they had in development,
Mm-hmm.
and which was a name that Brevik like came up with as a teen living in the Bay Area, California, seeing Mount Diablo, which is just, it's a mountain in this
really good.
area, being like, wow,
Oh,
that's
that's
an
really
awesome
good.
name. I'm going to make something
gonna
called
make-
Diablo. And
Yeah.
then he did. He made fucking Diablo.
Yeah.
And it's like one of the most important games ever. And
That's ridiculous.
yeah, he gave an incredible talk. I assume you saw this, Nick, right? He gave a really great talk at GDC, I think last year.
Yeah.
That was or maybe the year before.
Maybe the year
I think
before.
it was the year before. That was just Diablo 1 Classic Postmortem, and he with incredible amount of detail recounted the history of the development of the original Diablo.
Including it being turn-based.
Yeah, it was amazing. He had screenshots and stuff, and like
That's awesome.
yeah. And yeah, like Nick said, it was when they were playtesting it and speeding the time way up.
Yeah.
And it was sort of almost a fluke that it sort of just almost worked
Yeah.
out of the box by just ramping up the time scale and turning it into something that was effectively real time, which is amazing to imagine.
That's funny. Yeah, I guess you could imagine a turn-based game where the turns are just going brrrr and
Yeah.
going, this might be more fun than the game we were
Yeah.
playing before.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's
Uh-huh.
really cool.
They essentially created a genre with that
Yeah.
Yeah.
that tweak. Yeah, they were making basically a roguelike. They were making essentially a turn-based classic roguelike.
Yep.
But more graphical. Anyway, yeah, I love that. That was a good pull, Nick. So, Mike Hawes says, in Idle Thumbs episode 127, Chris postulated that Spelunky is one of the great, with a capital G, games. What are the great games? Well, I think I'd literally just now claimed Diablo is one of them. So
I think
Diablo.
historically across Idle Thumbs, this is very different than GOTY by volume. I feel like games we've declared either great games or literally called it the great game: Spelunky, Co-op, Dota 2, Far Cry 2, Diablo.
Zelda.
Maybe I mean, those are the games that I think have literally had that stupid moniker
suppose
attached
so,
to them.
yeah.
And then the other ones end up being like Zelda and Half-Life.
Yeah.
That we,
Yeah.
as far as like volume discussed
I would
on
say
this show.
the original Legend of Zelda and Half-Life, those are definitely among the great
They
games.
are the great
I think,
games.
for sure. Yeah, unquestionably.
they're
for me.
they're on your list of goats.
They're my
Your game of all time.
Yes.
Come on, Chris. That's a pretty.
My GGs.
Your good. Your great games.
StarCraft. The GG. The Activision espionage game Spycraft was literally subtitled The Great Game.
That's right.
So that's canonically
the great game.
Spycraft, the great game.
The great game. Yeah.
I don't know if it's a great game. It seems like it's pretty. I never played it, but it's definitely the great game.
I did weirdly. I would like to. I played it when it was current at a friend's house, and as I recall, it had you doing all sorts of different kind of forensic stuff and examining like the Zapruder film and stuff like that.
Weird.
Yeah, it's
literally the Zapruder film.
Yeah, I think so. I think a bunch of it was related to the JFK assassination. I can't remember very many specifics of that game.
It's fine.
But it
was great.
I mean, it's a really interesting take on an adventure game. I mean, like a traditional adventure game, it was all completely bespoke, right? I mean, it was like, now you do this thing where you solve this particular thing.
Right.
But simply by virtue of that not being... there just not being games that were like that.
Right.
I don't know. It was kind of interesting. I would like to go back and play it now. I'm sure that it would absolutely not in any way
No
stand
way.
the
You could
test
do
of
your
time,
retrospective article on Medium that says Spycraft : still great.
Oh, this is stupid. I just went to the Wikipedia article on Spycraft, the great game, and I wanted to just see if I could refresh my memory. Scrolled down, expanded the gameplay section, and all it says is, this section is empty. You can help by adding to it. October 2012. So thanks a lot, Wikipedia. Why is that section even there?
Because they're trying to coax someone into writing about it.
Parts of the game were coded in HTML to enable it to update elements like news reports and character dossiers in real time via the internet.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Huh.
It's a great game.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't JFK. I don't know. I think there was something that was supposed to evoke the sensation. Yeah, because it looks like it was actually about it was a fictional Russian espionage plot.
Right, yeah.
So I would still kind of like to see this game just for its historical background. I mean, I don't know why I'm devoting so much time to Spycraft.
Because I forgot to run the timer.
It's not one of the great games.
Well,
what do you guys? I mean, do you guys have?
What was that with Ghostbusters? What was that?
Oh, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I heard this Ghostbusters as well.
Oh, it can be Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
It's fine.
One simple rhythmic trick transforms this terrible ringtone into the classic Ghostbusters theme. One of the great themes.
Yeah.
Nick, do you have any great games to add to this?
Oh, God, I don't know. StarCraft, probably.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat. We're probably underrepresenting older games than that,
especially older console games.
Games, probably.
This is such a dumb example.
Mario,
Tetris.
I don't know. Tetris is a great is a great for sure.
Weltris,
Wetrix,
Wetrix,
Wetrix, the
Clax.
Great game.
Clax. In my own personal headcanon, Clax is one of the great games. I don't think in good
Clax,
conscience,
attorneys at law, great games.
I don't think I could claim that Clax is truly one of the great games, but in my own little pocket universe,
you can claim that it is the 90s and there is time for it.
Oh yeah, it is definitely the 90s, and there is time for Clax. Yeah. I think there is time for Clax as opposed to it is.
Oh, there. It
is the 90s, and there is time for Clax. I could be wrong about that. That could be wrong.
I know you're right.
I could be sullying one of the great taglines.
One of the GTs.
Yeah. Interactive. Patrick Koski says, if you guys were robots, what model robot would you be? And also, what would your purpose be? Asking for my friend Papa Borbos. Is that supposed to mean something?
Yeah, that's code. What?
We're
hashtag love you hearts. We're sexy.
We're definitely encoding information in some sort of Britney Spears Instagram account right now.
God damn.
No one knows what that means.
That's true.
What kind of robot would you be?
What model robot? Right, is the question. So
yeah, and also, what would your purpose be?
What would your purpose be?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What interview with that robot that's what is your purpose? And they I can't remember the answer, but it was really the creepy robot that answered, what is your purpose? That's probably what this is in reference to. I don't know. What
I mean, I think empirically, based on my life, I think my purpose would be to just always produce podcasts. I would just be an endlessly podcast producing robot. Is kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
But I don't know what would my model name be. I mean, it would be my name.
Well, Jake
I guess.
would be Jake 2K, I think.
Yeah,
Jake 2000.
JA2KE.
Yeah.
Which is always how I think of your name. I can never think of it as Jake 2000. I always think of it as JA2KE.
That's fine.
Which is how it is literally written. Is the least catchy thing ever. But how did you come up with that?
A long time ago, sometime when it was the 90s and there was time for clacks, I thought it would be funny if my name online was Jake 2000.
Yeah, I remember because you used to also have some Jake 2000s.
Yeah, they're gone. There was like some Jake 2000s and some Jake of Tomorrow's around. I think on Shack News I was Jake 2000.
You were Jake, yes.
On Shack News I was Jake 2000. And then I thought it was funny to just like condense and nest it as much as possible, and that's it. I mean, it's not funny.
It's both. Well, it's kind of clever, and it's also just lucky that you had a K in your name.
Yeah,
which most people don't. Nick has 2 Ks in his name. You could be Nick 2K, Nick 2K, Breck 2 Con.
Nick 2K Breck 2 Con.
There's your robot.
Jesus Christ!
That's your robot. All right, we found it. It's also your street racing sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a self-driving car. Nick 2K Breck 2 Con.
For your street racing sequel name, you have to pronounce it Nick 2K Breck 2 Con.
Right, yes.
I'm an autonomous vehicle that races for pinks.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Which you then tow somewhere and sell.
Right,
You tow to the nearest CarMax and then sell for a profit.
It's the plot of Cars.
That's got to be at some point, that's going to be when the Fast and the Furious movies just commit suicide. It will be when they have to start racing, when it turns into like a John Henry story against autonomous cars.
Yeah. Oh, that's probably coming.
Do you think the equivalent of self-driving Uber cars in the Cars universe?
Did you say Uber? Self-driving Uber.
Uber.
Oh my God! There could be a Cars movie with zombies. They have a zombie story.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Do you think the equivalent of a self-driving Uber car in the Cars universe is a brainless car that's just a car with a computer driving it?
Crazy.
Which is basically a zombie car.
That could totally be a car. That sequel has to have been pitched.
Yeah.
The idea that Cars characters start showing up with like their eyes just replaced with a screen.
Yeah.
And they just go somewhere automatically and do weird things in the night that allow the classic Pixar nighttime sneaking scene to occur.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Man, that's fucked up.
Anyway, I would be a robot that invents bad car sequels with you, Chris, with the two of us.
It's our life. It's our
and then
calling.
Nick would be racing for pinks.
Yeah. I don't know what you guys are doing. Just racing around.
Someone suggests my life is bad. C3mo as your robot.
C3mo.
Yes. I'm sorry that's your robot name, Chris.
What do you think I would do?
You'd be a protocol droid.
I would just be an old man droid, basically. I guess that fucking
You'd be a
fits.
confused British butler.
All right.
Who goes, oh, whenever anything remotely interesting happens.
This shoehorn will make your task so much easier.
You would just
never wear shorts in the summer. Yeah. I mean, don't. It's gross.
I agree. We shouldn't have to see men's legs, please.
Wow.
It's true. I don't want to see it.
No.
Oh, all right.
All right. Fiona Martin says, is there any video game art, past or present, that has ever inspired you? Love, Fiona.
Most of it.
Most video game art has inspired you. What does that mean exactly?
I don't know. As a person who makes art in video games, it's hard to not look at art in video games and either be excited about a thing that someone else is doing or be spurred on to do something because of something someone else has done. I mean, I don't know. There's obviously a lot of art in video games that is not I guess objectively inspiring because there's a lot of stuff that.
How can something be objectively inspiring?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sorry, not objectively inspiring. There's probably art. There's probably a good chunk of art in games across the history of games that is very unlikely to inspire someone because it's dumpy and bad. But I feel like on the whole, I have a cheat answer, and it's because I end up making a lot of game art that I look at a lot. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that. I mean, anyone can look at Journey and just be holy shit. Like, that's just like your brain just is like on fire when you're looking at anything in a game like Journey, or like when the first, when Katamari came out for the first time on the PS2, you're just like, okay, I didn't know what games could look like. But at the same time, even just looking at like a really nicely executed something inside of just like a Gears of War or something is still interesting to me and gets me excited to go back to my desk and make stuff. But that's probably not what the question was actually asking.
I mean, it seems like a valid thing for the question to be asking, like, for you to be answering.
Like Brendan Chung's Twitter feed is a fantastic place to go for game art that seems rote when it's in the middle of a game, but if you actually isolate it out and point out the work that went into it and what it's communicating, it is inspiring. Where like Brendan Chung of Blendo Games, his Twitter handle is Blendo Games. He goes through and like plays a lot of first and third person action games, and then just calls out specific things like the way that shadows between the player character and the world interplay, or like the way that you can sort of slide over something and the player control system handles it and creates this really aesthetically pleasing moment, or just like the way that a character stumbles over an uneven rock. Like a lot of his things, he's really interested in moments that I think are inspiring to him that come out of really heavy technical art interacting with visual art, interacting with player input, and like that's not a traditional axis that I think people look at for inspiring game visuals, but it totally like he makes that stuff seem exciting to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, he recently pointed out a bunch of like walking down stair animations that NPCs had, and like pointed out that there were different animations for different characters, and the walking
like, up the stairs
versus
down
different than walking down. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, he's good at that. He's good at finding that stuff. This question could also, in theory, be interpreted, I mean, could also have been intended, for all I know, rather than meaning literally like visual art in a game, could mean video game
like
art
artistry?
as, like in the way that, like a film is a piece of art unto its, not just the visual parts of it, but the whole complete work. Because I mean, you guys mentioned Journey, and I feel like I don't know that I could look at Journey and just say it was specifically the visuals alone that created a reaction in me.
Right.
I mean, that game, by the end of it, because I played that game with a co-op partner start to finish in a single sitting. And by the end of it, I feel like we were both kind of overwhelmed.
You're kind of drained by the end of that game.
Yeah. In a way that was a result of the totality of all of its components, from player input to visuals to sound to the specific weird interactions of the multiplayer system. And that was just such a cohesive, complete experience. That really felt like having a direct result to a piece of art. Like, in a very like tightly wound way that was extremely effective.
Yeah, because usually with a game, you're trying to find a moment that's like that for a moment that maybe is just unique to you and not anybody else, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You can find moments like that in Zelda Breath of the Wild, but in some ways they often feel more interesting or just like artistically striking because they are moments that are dynamically generated, basically, But I mean, there's a real artistry in that, like just creating like interplay between systems that create a moment that you would find in Journey, just kind of that just takes you by surprise. That shit is always really impressive.
That's true. That's a good point. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about. I mean, you saying that brings up, I think, an interesting distinction between that, which is something that I think on Idle Thumbs we've always concerned ourselves with heavily. The difference between that and the sort of like version of that lasts the entire game, which I think to some extent might only be possible with a game. It's almost likely to occur in opposite kinds of games. The Journey version of it, where it's like it's the totality of the experience that creates that from the beginning to end. In some ways, that can almost only happen in a game short enough to fit itself entirely into that one unbroken kind of enraptured experience, as opposed to the kind of thing you're talking about, Nick, is almost only possible in games that are big and sprawling enough to give you this huge canvas with all sorts of interesting interacting elements that you can then have this really sublime moment plucked out of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's probably not enough attention paid both on the development side and in terms of how we discuss games in the former, right? In the sort of crystalline entire experience, because that's hard to achieve.
Yeah.
And hard to market also.
Mm-hmm.
And I think games, this is this is maybe too rude sounding, but the example you were just talking about specifically is like the Journey style.
Mm-hmm.
I think given how team-driven a game is, a sort of a team-driven collaboration or team-driven collaboration that is then not secretly at all, run from executive management up top. If someone walks in to a room and goes, it's going to be just like crystal perfect 3-hour potent experience that will make people feel this, the team will probably go, and management will go, you're not making that. I think that game is just harder to sell down and up until you've already made it, unless you're a tiny team.
That's true, but that's also I don't know that would be the way you would direct a game, right? I mean, a movie can be that, but you don't pitch a movie by saying that sentence. You pitch a movie by saying what the actual content of it is, and then in the making, you create the sublime experience, right? I mean, you don't go like, my next film is going to be 2 hours of like sublime, like enraptured, like perfection.
Sure. I mean, you wouldn't literally say that, but I think that just conceptually, that is just a harder sell. No matter, I think people are going to smell out. They're going to sniff out that that's what you're trying to make, and you like. I don't know how to say this without sounding. You're right that what I'm saying can be easily knocked down, but I just think we don't see a lot of them in part because it's creating that sort of experience inside of a game is you have to push against what game tools and what sort of games want to be really hard in a way that you maybe don't necessarily have to in a movie. So, and I think because of that, it's a hard thing to put a stake in the ground and decide you're going to make and tell other people that you're going to make.
Yeah, I think that might be true, but I think there are probably theoretical versions of that are less abstract than Journey is, that are just, I actually want to tell a specific story or like convey a certain environment or something, that are extremely cohesive and tightly wound, but it's more the business model of games that is less conducive to that, because once you've started making that thing, why would you just make the 2-hour version of it? Like, that is just not what people are conditioned to expect in buying a game. I mean, I think when you look at, for example, television versus movies, like you can, especially these days, have an 18-hour long serialized story, and you can have a 2-hour movie, and those are using the exact same technical tools pretty much to create, but you've just committed to a different arc, like a different sort of length of emotional arc, and we just have a lot fewer of the movie length one in games. But I don't think that's because teams couldn't do it. I mean,
it's not that teams can't do it. I think the buy-in is tougher because it's hard to envision how one of those can work perfectly. The nice thing about a TV show or a movie, it can be 2 hours or it can be 18 hours, but you don't need to learn how to control it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yes. The person just presses play.
The number of
goes.
questions that a team who's tasked to make something like a game that is that kind of experience will just be astronomically higher, and the amount of doubt in the room will be astronomically higher because the objectives you have to complete as a developer are just more. Unless your game is literally press W to move forward, or whatever.
Yeah. No, it's true. I think it's a combination of those factors and also sort of self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
I also wasn't trying to say that what I was saying is not a self-fulfilling, self-perpetuating problem.
I know. But but I've raised those exact same concerns in the past, so I'm certainly sympathetic.
I'm going to actually start using the timer again now. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Andy Gorman says, "Is the experience of being a niche internet micro-celebrity, the best turn of phrase I can come up with, as strange as I imagine it might be? Is it an experience you would endorse?" I don't think it is a significantly intrusive experience on my life to need to endorse or unendorse it either way. I don't know about you guys, but I have the experience probably once every 2 weeks of being recognized in public, and it's typically completely fine. Like, I've never had I've never not like we are so far from being famous enough that I feel like that would ever cause legitimate problems with like people being aggressive or shitty, that I've never found it to be an issue. I mean, like, I don't know if you Nick, you seem like you might disagree. I don't know.
Oh, no, I don't think of myself as a micro celebrity anyway, but I mean, I will say that, like, in this day and age, being out there on the internet at all definitely carries with it some risks.
Oh, sure.
But in general, I don't feel like that's much of an issue for myself.
Yeah.
Certainly.
I mean,
it has occasionally been.
Yeah.
And that's disturbing.
Sad to say, as white guys, we are inoculated from a lot of the
most of it
worst,
is not. Yeah.
Like,
yep.
Knock-on effects of that.
That's
like
true.
By far.
That's true.
Yeah, the places that I've run into weirder and more uncomfortable encounters are never related to idle thumbs or just having goofy opinions on the internet. It's always
I should clarify
because like it's always been because of a creative choice made in a game that someone has a really strong association to either the game or the intellectual property.
Oh, that's funny because I've never
finds
been
me
in that position. Yeah.
At a panel or somewhere at like a place like PAX and wants to let me know that I did something bad, that I ruined
that
something
you ruined
that
their
they liked.
childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like podcasts, it turns out, are a good place to be.
Yeah, I've never had a problem with a
You just record some audio and then people listen to it, and if they don't like it, they erase it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. The almost universally, this is probably mainly just because, again, like we're so far from being actually famous people in society. Like there's not even like that. I mean, it's just that is so much of a different sphere. But the experience I almost always have when I get recognized in public is, and I assume a big part of this is because we do audio podcasts, is I will notice someone sort of just like staring at me, and with that like. Do I know that person?
Right.
And then, like, this is...
Do you do a podcast?
Oh, that's true. That happened to us. Were you...
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was at Two Sisters.
That was at Two Sisters, yeah. Someone literally heard our voices and said, do you guys do a podcast? That was really funny. That was at a bar. But the more...
Sorry, nope. I don't know if you were making a point, but
it doesn't matter.
Eat shit.
It's not important at all. Andy Gorman also says... On the last Ruination cast, Nick Brecken said he was a Linklater fan. What are your impressions of his movie Everybody Wants Some?
Jesus Christ, hoisted again and again and again. Da, 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 da. That's just the sound that you hear when you're hoisted.
You're the Ghostbusters theme, but like sung badly? Yeah, they say... Who are you going to call? And then a guy says, get hoisted. And then, yeah. And then you're sued.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who was it that did the Ghostbusters theme?
Ray
Parker Jr.
Ray Parker Jr.
And then Ray Parker Jr. was sued by Huey Lewis in the news because of its being similar to I Want a New Drug.
Like backwards. The chords are like reversed.
Yeah,
from that.
so when our new theme, Get Hoisted, gets out there and becomes a charting single... Hopefully we're sued in kind by Ray Parker Jr. and then Huey Lewis. It's like, well, if you're ripping off him, you're ripping off me.
I think that Andy Gorman is in chat right now saying, please don't actually feel anxious about answering this question.
No, too bad.
Nope. It's fine.
He did restate it. He sort of.
I appreciate the effort. I will watch that movie.
Yeah.
Sometime.
All right. Well, I think that seems like that just about does it for this episode of the Idle Thumbs Ruination Online. Thanks for watching this live on Twitch or on our YouTube channel or listening to it on the Idle Thumbs podcast feed where it will eventually appear.
Where it will live forever.
Yeah. If you would like to be able to forcefully wedge questions into this monthly stream, you can do so by backing our Patreon at patreon.com/idlethumbs at the appropriate level. There are some options in there for you. And our website with all of our podcasts across all our different series is idlethumbs.net.
That's the one.
That's the one. We will be back with a new episode of Idle Thumbs and with another episode of The Ruination Online a couple weeks after that. Thanks for listening and watching.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
How do I turn this off?
Whoa.
Oh, weird.